Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden, but we're going to head a little bit to the east of me here in Skåne to Öland, which is the southernmost of the two main islands off the Swedish east coast. Basically the long skinny one to the east of Kalmar. And for this review we are going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a couple of times before. This is going to be review number 4 that I've done from these guys, if memory serves me correctly. So for this one then, we are going to go to a little place called Rälla, which is about 2/3 of the way up the island on the western side, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Fireside Brewery. So this one is called the Winter Blaze. It comes in at 6.2% ABV, and this one is a New England hazy style IPA. So yeah, very curious to see how this one turns out. This beer was released as part of the Lokala Småskaligt Assortiment and Systembolaget here in Sweden for November of 2020, and like I said, I think this is the 4th beer that I'm reviewing from these guys. The other ones, the very first one I did was Carry the Torch, which was a West Coast IPA. That was brewed along with a local band actually. Then there was the Fields of Fire, which I actually bought in Öland. And that was one that was done with local Öland strawberries. The last one I did was the Ember IPA, which was more of a West Coasty type IPA, and then there was this one. The guys at the brewery actually recommended I take a look at this one, so I added this in, or I think I'd already ordered it when they actually messaged me to recommend this one. I think I had actually already ordered it, if I remember rightly. But yeah, these guys, in my experience, they do some really nice beers, and again, they're another example of just a very, very small Swedish brewery. As I've told you in various Swedish reviews before, there's a crazy amount of breweries in Sweden these days, probably about 700 or so, which is impressive for a country of about 10 million. And a lot of that is just due to the fact that the alcohol laws were so strict for so long, and so a lot of people did home brewing. The quality of the home brewing is very, very high because of that, and a lot of these guys are now turning commercial, so do not be scared to try some of the beers from the very, very small breweries in random parts of Sweden. You can find some real gems here actually, but yeah, these guys are definitely an example of that. So yeah, if you get the chance to try some of these Fireside Brewing beers, I would recommend it. I've had 3 good beers from them so far, and hopefully this one makes 4. But yeah, let's see how we get on with this one. Curious to see what this beer has in store for us. A 6.2% New England IPA. So yeah, let's go for it then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Fireside Brewery before, and you will no doubt see more added to that list in the fairly near future. I think next time we need to look at something from the dark side of the spectrum, or a lager. We'll see about getting that done. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Fireside Brewing then, on to my brewery notes. So Fireside Brewery, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Rälla on Öland. Like I said, about 2/3 of the way up the island on the western side. And this brewery is part of an American barbecue restaurant and brew pub, although unfortunately, I believe in April of this year, 2020, they had to close the restaurant, but I think they will look to open that up again at some point when the whole economic situation becomes a little bit more favourable. But the company itself is owned by Joel and Johanna Heineke, and they started brewing back in 2015. The first brewery that they had was a very small 160 litre brew kit, but they found that their beer sold much better than they expected, and it was very difficult for them to keep up with demand. So they made plans to expand, and in 2018, and by 2018 they'd expanded the brewery capacity quite a little bit, sorry, but in 2018 they started adding some local ingredients into their beers as well, such as local honey and also strawberries and things like that as well, and they used these kind of beers to create the Öland series. I do want to try that local honey one actually, but I haven't seen that. I don't know if I can order that through Systembolaget, but I'll have a look at it again. But yeah, the strawberry one that I mentioned to you, that is the Fields of Fire. That's a lovely saison, so if you are interested in these breweries beers, I think you can can order that one nationwide actually, so yeah, I would recommend that you do. But this, as I say, they do have their local Öland series, which is beers brewed with local Öland ingredients, and over the course of 2019 these guys apparently brewed around 25,000 litres, and they expanded the brewery a little bit more even further, and they started selling their beers nationwide through Systembolaget that year as well. As of November 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, according to Untappd, they've released 45 different beers, and like I said to you, this is the 4th one that I'm reviewing for you here on the channel. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Fireside Brewery for the moment. At some stage you will hopefully see these guys feature on a Meet the Brewery segment. I was talking to them through Instagram and they said they were quite keen to do that, and fingers crossed by the time I do get out to Öland again, they have the restaurant up and running. It'd be cool to go there on one of the restaurant nights. When I was there, I think we were just unfortunate because it wasn't, I think we were there, I think it was on there was a break at the weekend or something like that, either that or we were there during the week, but the restaurant wasn't open unfortunately when we were in Öland, so yeah. Fingers crossed we can have a look at that next time, and fingers crossed the restaurant business is up and running again. They are actually in quite a random little place actually. When it's a brew pub, you know, it is a little bit difficult for them to kind of do that, but you know, fingers crossed, as I say, they can get the restaurant up and running again. Always American barbecue and beer is a very, very good pairing. War pigs in Copenhagen, you know. That's what it's all about. But yeah, as I say, that's all I can really tell you about Fireside Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all those different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork in this one before we open it up. As you can see, the artwork is quite typical of the other beers that we've had from these guys. Basically, they all have this kind of similar background and just a different colour usually, depending on what beer it is. But yeah, I have to say, I do like the artwork for these guys. But yeah, the Fireside Brewery symbol, I guess, probably is this little thing at the bottom here. Fireside Brewery. But yeah, it tells you a little bit about the beer on the side here as well. Winter Blaze is a heavily hopped New England style IPA with soft mouthfeel and medium to full body. Pleasant tropical fruits and flavours and an intense aroma. The hops in this one are Citra, Azacca, Mosaic and Chinook, so that's a really nice mix. Citra, we know, lovely big mangoes and lots of complexities. Azacca, quite a bright mandarin-y, citrusy orange, but also a little bit of pineapple. Mosaic is a slightly more oily tangerine orange, although not as oily as Amarillo, and then Chinook we know is that big kind of pine resinous and grapefruity sort of thing. So I'm guessing that the first three hops, Citra, Azacca, Mosaic, will be aroma hops, later addition hops, and then the Chinook will probably be a bittering hop. It says that this one has 50 IBUs, but it's got wheat and oats in it as well. So yeah, quite interesting this, but we can see it's got a nice degree of haze on it. Plain black bottle cap incidentally, so let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting now. Very curious to see what this beer has in store for us, and nice to return to Fireside after a little while as well. So let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. The Fireside Brewery Winter Blaze. So yeah, I think this one will be very, very nice. That does certainly look the part, I have to say. So yeah, there we go. There we go. So, as you can see, and as you would expect when it's a New England IPA, this one is poured a lovely kind of bright yellow. I think it's kind of fair. I always like comparing the New England IPAs to different fruit juices. This one is it almost looks a little bit like a kind of mango juice, to be honest with you, but it does have a little bit of the paleness that you might expect from a pineapple juice. But you can see when we poured the beer, it did have about a 2/3 finger of a frothy, I would say, kind of creamy, perfect white head. There is a little bit of a cream tinge to it, but I would say mainly perfect white. But that's, pardon me, just fading away to be a very, very thin foamy layer now, and it's going to leave a nice big ring around the edge of the glass. But one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones just sticking towards the side of it there. But you can see the level of haze on this is pretty damn impressive actually. For a 6.2%er, I think that has to be one of the hazier ones that I've come across, to be honest with you. And as I've told you with these New England IPAs before. You know, it's about the higher you go up the alcohol scale, the more hazy you should get, the more oats and the more wheat the beer contains. But for a 6.2%er, the level of haze on that is pretty impressive. I've seen, you know, double IPAs and triple IPAs that are New England that aren't as hazy as this one. So yeah, this one should be quite interesting. I do wonder if it's local wheat and local oats that they'll have put in this one actually. Because as I say, these guys like to use local ingredients. But yeah, it certainly looks the part. One or two big bubbles on the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, and the head incidentally has just faded to be a very, very thin foamy layer. So yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. Very, very curious about this. So yeah, let's take a look at that aroma then. Yeah, straight away with this beer you're going to notice just how juicy this thing is. The Mosaic and the Azaka, I think, are really coming out of this beer very, very nicely, but we'll focus on the fruity side a little bit later. Let's look at the malts first. So, straight away with this beer, I actually get a good little bit of the wheaty side of thing out of this. You know, at the back of the nose you can really smell a little bit of that slightly more bitey wheat. The oats you can smell as well, and to me the oats come across as being a little bit almost kind of like powdered in a sense, like they do just have a little bit of an almost kind of dry character to them. So the malty side of this beer, it comes across as, it does have a little bit of creaminess to it the more that you take the aroma of the beer in. You do get a little touch of that slightly yogurty sort of thing out of it that you can sometimes get from these New England IPAs, and with the level of haze that this one has, that kind of feature in this beer is not overly surprising. Yeah, but the more that you smell of this beer, I think the sweeter the malty side of it becomes. You really get a lovely kind of more creamy yogurty type of thing coming out of this beer, the more that you smell of it. So I have to say I really appreciate that about this one. But to me the malt base overall, when you take it in at the start it really does seem a little bit more wheaty and bitey, but the more and more that you smell of this one, we've got a lovely kind of oaty character out of it. So yeah, it does sweeten up a little bit and smoothen out, to be honest with you. I do want to say there's a little slight touch of a kind of brown sugary sort of thing in this one. It does have a little bit of that almost Werther's Originally butter candy type thing to it, and that's becoming more common in these New England IPAs recently. Yeah, you are getting a little bit of that out of this one, so that's an interesting feature about this beer. Definitely a little bit of that kind of Werther's Original brown sugary type thing in here, so pay attention to that actually. The malt base of this beer comes across as really nicely. I think it does thicken up the more that you smell of it, and the beer definitely sweetens up in my mind with the aroma as well. So hoppy side of things then, there is a teeny little bit of earthiness to this one. That's Mosaic that's giving you that. Oddly enough, I don't find this beer to be overly... I don't really find this beer piney and resinous, which is what I would expect with Chinook, to be honest with you. You do expect Chinook to be a big kind of piney resinous beast, but to be honest, this beer comes across on the green side of things as being more sort of floral and aromatic. It does have a lovely bit of grassiness to it as well. There is a nice bit of zestiness in there, and Azaka, from what I remember, will give you a little bit of that. It does give you quite a zestiness actually compared to the other hops, which are a bit more oily and fruity, I would say. But yeah, it's got a lovely fruity juiciness to it. I think that's everything we need to say about the green side of things. Definitely more floral and aromatic leading, but the fruity side of things, let's have a little look at that. Yeah, so for me straight away with this one, it really has a lot of orangey character to it, which again with Azaka and Mosaic you would expect. So you can smell that lovely kind of sharper, more zesty, mandarin-y note coming out of the beer. There is a wee bit of an oily kind of tangerine thing in there, but yeah, you do. I think you do get quite a nice juicy pineapple in this one as well. The oranges don't come across as quite as sharp and zesty as they might, and I think that's the pineapple note from the Azaka that's doing that. But behind that, of course, you can smell the nice smooth kind of mango notes. You can smell the nice smooth mango notes from the Citra in there as well. I really like that about this beer, to be honest. This has got a really nice kind of just fruity juiciness to it. Yeah, the fruity notes out of this are very nice. Little bit, as I say, a little bit of a juicy mango in the background, but then the oranges, the kind of the tangerines and the mandarins in there come across really nicely. But I think that the pineapple from the Azaka, for me, really is the thing that kind of stands out about this. This beer comes across as being really quite tropically, and then the orangey, more citrusy notes just kind of sit underneath that actually. So I'm curious to see how that translates into the flavour, but the aroma of this beer is certainly very nice. So like I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy that aroma before you get stuck into it, but we are going to have a taste of this beer now and see how we get on. So this one is the Winter Blaze 6.2% New England IPA from Fireside Brewing in Rälla on the island of Öland off the southeast coast of Sweden. Let's get stuck into this one. Slanja Skål. Yeah, that one is pretty damn solid actually. It definitely has a wee bit of that wheaty bite, and you do get a wee bit, you can feel the Chinook in this, you can definitely feel the Chinook in the flavour. I wasn't picking up so much of it in the aroma, but the Chinook definitely comes across in the flavour of this one. But yeah, this is a pretty damn nice beer. I'm going to say straight away, thumbs up to Fireside Brewery for this one. This is quite interesting, I have to say. Yeah. The other thing I'm going to notice about this one, or that you will notice, is that it comes across really quite clean. And I mean, the sort of bitiness and things you get off this beer, if I was blind tasting this, I would probably think that this one was at least, like 7% or something. So at 6.2, the level of bitiness and stuff you get out of this one, and the hoppy bitterness, like I said, this one is 50 IBUs, it tells you that on the bottle. You might well think, if you blind tasted this, that it was a good bit stronger. And 50 IBUs, I think usually that New England triple IPAs are about 50, sometimes 60 IBUs. So the bitterness in here does make this beer stand apart a little bit. So yeah, you've got a bit of bitiness from the wheat, but at the same time you do have a little bit of the bitterness from the hops in there. So that's an interesting point to make about this beer. But the malty backbone, I think, does become smoother and smoother the further that you go into the aftertaste with this one, so keep that in mind. But yeah, I like this one. Let's try and break down the flavour of this then and see how we get on. Straight away with this beer, middle third of your palate and back third of your palate, you can feel a nice smooth sort of bready thing with this one. There is a little bit of that bready backbone there. Again, in the middle of the palate with the oaty layer, I think the middle third of your palate is where the oats come out. To me, the oats actually feel a little bit kind of almost powdery. This is definitely not the creamiest of New England IPAs that you're going to come across. On the malty side of things, I actually find this one to be a little bit drier. We'll see if it sweetens up though the more that we go into the flavour, to be honest. But yeah, as I say, kind of soft white bready base, a little bit of a kind of dry, almost powdery oaty character sitting on top of that. But as you go into the back third of your palate, you can feel the oats do spread back a little bit, but at the very end you do get a little bit of you do get a good little bit of kind of wheaty bitiness out of this one, which is really interesting. Yeah, there is a good little bit of a bitey, wheaty character comes out of this one. Like I said, I mean, it's not the most bitey of New England IPAs that I would have come across before, but the whole beer, I think, the more that you taste of this one and the more your palate adjusts to, I think it really smoothens out a little bit. So yeah, on that back third of your palate, you can feel the breadiness just gets a little bit thicker. At the very back, you've got a bit of bitiness from the wheat, but then as you move further forward, on that back third of your tongue, you can feel the wheatiness just kind of smoothing out a little bit. Then in the middle, I would say in the kind of middle sort of your palate, you will get just a wee tiny bit of that sort of butter candy, brown sugary sort of thing. That takes a little while to come out right enough. But yeah, overall, in terms of the malty side of things, I would say that this is one of the slightly more dry dry New England IPAs in terms of oatiness that I've come across, and it does have a fair little bit of bitiness from the wheat. The malt base of this is really quite interesting, and the sort of uniqueness of it if you like, does make me wonder if it's local malts or something that's in it. So yeah, that's quite an interesting one. I would be curious to have a little look, a little sneak peek at the recipe or whatever, and just figure out exactly what's going on in here. But this beer I think is quite unique in terms of its malty side of things. That's a little bit unique to me, but the hoppy side of the beer is kind of what you'd expect, to be honest. So in the back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness there. As you move further forward along the side of the palate there, you get some nice you do get some nice floral aromaticity. You can detect a wee tiny bit of a piney resin underneath, you know, that's Chinook all the way. So you do get a little bit of that, and as you reach the front corners of the palate, again the beer is a little touch kind of, it is a little bit, just a little bit more kind of big and floral. But then round the very front curve of the tongue, the beer's lighter and grassy, which again is what you would expect. But for me, the green side of the hops, yeah, more kind of floral and aromatic, to be honest with you. This beer, just from the way it comes across, as it tastes as if it's dry hopped, you do get a wee bit of that dustiness on the edge of the palate there, so I'm pretty sure that's dry hopped. With dry hop beers, you usually have to let them mellow out in the bottle a little bit. And you know, I'm drinking this beer for you on the 26th of November, so it will have been in the bottle for, you know, about a month or so. So yeah, this is one of the things, it still does feel really quite fresh, and I've always felt with New Englands you do need to let them sit a little bit and just let them mellow out almost. I don't like drinking the New Englands as fresh as I would a West Coast IPA. In this beer you still get some of the hoppy dustiness out of this, so I think this one, it has been pretty damn heavily hopped, I would say. I think a lot of dry hopping gone into this one. Because yeah, if I'm drinking this one at this point, after at least a month in the bottle, and it's still got that, then it's been heavily hopped. It certainly has. But yeah, on the fruity side of things then, as I always say, on the front third of your palate, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. It's kind of what you would expect, to be honest with you. And it comes across really nicely. So on that front third of your palate, if you go towards the back of it, you do get a wee bit of a kind of passion fruity note there. You've got a wee bit of that kind of richer passion fruit. That's going to be the Citra that gives you that, and you also will get a little bit of it from the Chinook as well. The Chinook's going to give you a little bit of that kind of strength and pungency to the fruit. So yeah, you get that, but then as you move further forward, you get the nice soft mangoey flavours from the Citra coming out. Then as you move a little bit beyond that, you start to get a few softer kind of apricot-y type things, and then on the front half of that front third of your palate, you can feel a little bit of a divide here. So you start to get the more oily, orangey, tangerine notes from the Mosaic, but you're also getting a little bit of the more zest. As you move further forward within that orangey part, you start to get a little bit more of the kind of zesty things from the Azak as well. But on top of all of that, you do start to get, on the tip of your palate, you do start to get a slightly more oily, kind of pineapple-y note there as well. So the way the Mosaic and the Azak are coming out in this one, I think, is really quite interesting. And the fruits overall, I would say, come across as quite juicy, but there is just that little hint of an oiliness to them, and I think that offers a nice contrast from the rest of the beer, because like I say, you've got a big bitterness to this one, but you've also got a slightly drier malt base in this beer too. So the way that the fruits come across is really, again, quite unique and quite interesting in this one. So I mean, yeah, this is a really quite quirky beer, to be honest with you, and I think a lot of people would enjoy this. I mean, we're going through the whole kind of haze craze New England sort of thing just now, and this one I think is quite quirky. So yeah, I would say that overall one of the slightly drier and more bitter New England IPAs that I've come across, which is quite an interesting thing. But yeah, the other two IPAs I've had, I'm sure, have been a little bit more sort of more West Coasty. And I think when it comes down to it, in honesty, I actually am a little bit more of a fan of West Coasty IPAs, especially the big oily, caramelly leaning ones. I really like those. But when it comes to New England IPAs, you know, where I think I like the more kind of oaty ones when it comes to it as well. I think I'm a bit of a sweet tooth, you know, the Scottish sweet tooth really. So yeah, this one for me, I think this is really quite interesting. This is definitely quite a unique New England IPA. I think it's fair to say that. And when they're a fairly small volume brewery, about 25,000 litres a year, they can do things like this. But you know, if they were to scale up the brewing and the producing stuff like this, and you know, the Ember IPA and things, they could, I think they've got the potential to do pretty well if they did scale it up, to be honest. And if the restaurant stays shut, that might be what they what they have to do. But I think Joel and Johanna actually have other jobs as well, if I remember rightly. I think they only do the brewery thing part-time. But yeah, I think on the basis of the quality of their beer, they wouldn't have a problem if they've got the money there to invest in the company. I'm sure they could do quite well. But yeah, this is a really nice and really quite interesting New England IPA. A little bit more bitter, a little bit drier in the malt base, and then the fruits are quite quirky as well. So have a go at this one for yourself and just see what you think. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, what would we say about this? I would disagree with them on saying that it's mid to full bodied. I find this quite a light. It's quite a light. It's at the bottom end of mid body, this one for me, and it's quite slick. So I would disagree with them on the mouthfeel with this beer. This is a very, very slick New England IPA for me. The mouthfeel comes across as very clean as well, I think, and the carbonation's very, very smooth. So yeah, bottom end of mid body, very clean feeling IPA. In my mind, I like how this. I do like how this goes together. In terms of the hoppy bitterness, like we said earlier, it's 50 IBUs, and you do get a good bit of dankness around the edge of the palate with this one. So the malt base, as I say, it has got quite a bit of dryness to it. You know, it really does have a little bit of dryness to it. There is a wee bit of sweetness and smoothness develops later on, but yeah, mainly quite a dry malt base in my mind. And then you've got some really nice kind of juicy fruity notes to the beer. It's got a little bit of the juiciness in there, but you do get a wee bit of oiliness coming out of it as well. So yeah, just take a little bit of time and enjoy this beer. I think this is a really quite quirky New England IPA, and I'm just going to say straight away, thumbs up to Fireside Brewery for this. They've pulled off a really, really solid beer with this one. So yeah, give this a try for yourself and just see what you think. And I'm glad that the brewery recommended I have a go at this one. So yeah, thank you to, I think it was Joel that I was speaking to. He recommended that I have a go at this beer. So yeah, glad that he did, because otherwise I might have missed it. So yeah, I'll need to keep an eye out for the other ones, because I don't know if I know that they've got an autumn blaze as well, but that's obviously I need to wait for next year for that one now. But I need to see if they've got a spring blaze and a summer blaze and stuff like that. I think they've got these big seasonal IPAs, but I think for the next review I want a lager or a stout or something like this. I really would like to try something from the dark end of the spectrum, and then a bottom fermented beer rather than a top fermented beer. So yeah, we'll see what we can do about that, and I'm not sure what these guys actually do have available in that sense, so we'll see what we can do. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one then. So this one was the Winter Blaze 6.2% New England IPA from Fireside Brewery in Rälla on Öland. So yeah, really nice to review this one for you. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I certainly did. So make sure you check out this brewery if you get the chance. They've always got new beers coming out, or seasonal beers coming out through the Lokalis Muscovado. So you know, stick Fireside Brewery into Systembolaget and you will be in for a little bit of a treat. But yeah, this was an interesting beer, and I would recommend that you try it. And as I say, hopefully you can see these guys on the channel with a kind of Meet the Brewery segment at some point in the future. We'll see about getting that arranged. But yeah, thanks again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Fireside Brewery. We will return to these guys very soon, and you will see some more beers from the sort of Småland, Öland area in Sweden pretty soon. Thanks again for watching. Check out my social media, and I'll catch you guys later. This one was the Winter Blaze 6.2% New England IPA from Fireside Brewery in Rälla on Öland over in the southeast of Sweden. Cheers.